Yes, sir.
All right, great. Well, this is what I'm hearing, basically, over at MF Global, is that Corzine, of course, being somebody who doesn't really know how to run a brokerage business, he was speculating in his firm, MF Global, and he rang up about $1.5 billion in losses. And it was going to come to the point where he'd have to call up his creditors, which in this case is J.P. Morgan, and tell them that he was going to go bankrupt, that he wouldn't make good on that collateral. At which point, Jamie Dimon told John Corzine, either take that money out of your customer accounts or we'll kill you. So he threatened to kill Corzine if he didn't take the money out of the customer accounts, and Corzine did exactly that. He took the money out of the customer accounts, and now the customers don't get their money.
By the way, Max, you don't make stuff up from the time that I've talked to you. Sometimes you joke around and stuff, but when you're serious, you don't really toot your horn a lot. I mean, you know George Soros, you know his son, high-powered people like Steve Forbes see you and walk over and recognize you. You worked at the highest levels of this. They all know you. You're friends with Alec Baldwin. You know them all from the New York scene. And so if you're saying that, I mean, this is breaking. You're saying you have sources that are saying that they told them, we're going to kill you. And that is how they operate. I mean, they run the wars. J.P. Morgan is the boss. And then, of course, below that is their mafia don, Goldman Sachs. And you're saying J.P. Morgan told him, Jamie Dimon told him, you do this or you're going to sleep with the fishes.
Right. Ask John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. This is the way American banks do business around the world. Now they're doing it in America. Just like America flies drones around the world, now they're doing it in America. America tortures and kills people around the world, now they do it in America.
So it's just like Madoff. It's just like Madoff. I mean, now it's been to admit it, that, wait a minute, he moved a bunch of money to people and warned people, and he was really just a front man, as you said a year and a half ago, for bigger interest. And the same thing you said years ago was, they're basically told, you take the fall or you're dead.
Right. Well, I mean, you mentioned Madoff. Let's talk about Madoff for a second. It's interesting that Madoff, Lehman Brothers, AIG, and them run through the city of London. Is it possible to rehypothecate, that is to say, re-loan securities out, putting up no collateral whatsoever? They have a situation there which is infinite hypothecation. In America, you can only lend out 140% of customer accounts for loans.
So there's no fractional reserve banking in the city of London. It's to infinity.
That's absolutely correct in this context. And that's why AIG, Lehman Brothers, Madoff, and MF Global all go through the city of London, which is why when David Cameron recently had his kerfuffle in Brussels, where he said, I'm going to safeguard the city of London, and I'm not going to be part of your treaty revision. Well, what he's saying is that his masters, the people in the city of London, who are a part of this, the epicenter of the global financial terrorism network, are telling David Cameron that in no circumstances will they ever allow anyone to regulate them in any way. So Cameron dutifully ran back to London with his tail between his legs, doing the bidding of the financial terrorists in the city of London, which gave us, again, let me repeat, they gave us MF Global, AIG, Lehman, and Madoff, and they are the epicenter of this meltdown that's happening now. What's happening in Europe, as everyone can see, is the banks are melting down. No matter how much money, let's say the European try to smooth out the problems in these European banks, the hedge funds and the private equity managers can create 10 times that amount of credit default swaps used to crack that bond market, to get those yields high, to crush these countries because they want to buy all the assets for pennies on the dollar. We're seeing it in Greece. They're buying the assets for pennies on the dollar. We're seeing it in Ireland. They're giving away assets for pennies on the dollar. They want to do the same thing in Italy. They want to do the same thing in Spain and France. And they use these credit default swaps, again, going...
And that's the point of always raising taxes and regulations till all the small farms and businesses, and you get to own those, and now they're sharecroppers, they're now renters in what they previously owned, and that's what's so scary, Max. For at least 15 years, quietly behind the scenes, the entire architecture is to wage war on rural communities in the U.S., and now they're admitting it. Rural affairs...
Well, these interest rates on these European bonds, they keep going 6, 7%, 8%, which we hear is the unsustainable levels that are guaranteed for a deflationary implosion. Well, why do they keep going higher? It's because no matter what anyone does in the governments, the private equity and the hedge fund managers, which are bigger than any governments, use naked swaps and credit default swaps to crush the bond market, to get those yields high, to bankrupt these corporations. And they're able to do it through the loophole that is the City of London, which allows you to borrow an infinite amount of money with no...
Now, Max, stay there. Stay there. I understand. Are you saying your sources told you that the head of Goldman... that the head of J.P. Morgan told the former head of Goldman Sachs, the head of MF Global, Corzine, you give us our money, pal, or you're going to sleep with the fishes?
Yeah. I mean, look, the timing of it during the testimony is the CME head, as you pointed out, was talking about the fact that they were quite aware of this for 3 weeks. And the point kept being made that this is not an accounting error. We searched all the accounts. It was a blatant disregard of the law where they came in and they took customer money. And they did this because Diamond put a gun to his head and said, either you do this and make us whole, or we're going to blow your fucking head off.
Hold on. Max, we can't talk like that. This is actual broadcast radio, so we had to bleep that out, okay? All right. But you're saying sources told you this.
How can Jamie Dimon do that? Because back in the year 2000... during the passage of the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, it made all derivatives trading no longer was considered gambling. Up until then, they were considered gambling, but under that new legislation, they were no longer gambling, and it gave precedence to all derivative contracts above all securities, all cash, all banks. Whoever's wielding derivatives has the law on their side. So Diamond says, we are the derivatives wielder. Therefore, we are the law. You can just give us our money or we're going to kill you. Okay? Why is it different than the 1930s and the gangland and the gang wars? It's no different. These banks are now just out of control gangsters, and they're putting contracts on each other. Look at the whistleblower, Andrew Maguire, in London. He told that J.P. Morgan was manipulating the silver market. He walked out of that hearing and got hit by a car.
Well, look at how they killed. Look at how they killed Madoff's son a week after that newspaper interview got published. You saw that? I mean, they hung him. I know, it's incredible. Stay there. Back in 60 seconds with the second hour with Max Keiser. We're going to play this congressional testimony.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?